Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Let's go over the 10-game NBA slate for today on Draftkings. And unlike yesterday's slate, I'm looking forward to this one. Should be pretty good. We got a lot of good spend-up options, lots of good mid-range options, and lots of good value options. And we also have a lot of injury news to break down. So I am looking forward to it. Should be a pretty good one. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Follow me over on Twitter. I'm at Pennell16. And if you want to come over on Patreon, it's always much appreciated. You get access to any of the extra content that I put out every single night or every single week, just depending on the sport. NBA, you get access to the content I put out every single night. I do my projections, my cheat sheet, core plays, data sheet, my Discord chat. Everything's updated all the way up until lock, because you guys know how crazy NBA news can get throughout the day. And we, especially tomorrow, we got a lot of news coming out. Luka's questionable and some other guys. And then for the NASCAR, that's my most favorite thing I do, and it's more of a niche sport, and that's why I really enjoy it, because not a lot of people know exactly what they're doing in NASCAR, so I feel like that's where we get our biggest edge, because it's, a niche sport. Kind of like UFC is more of a niche sport. Golf's not really niche, but you guys know what I mean. So I really do enjoy putting the NASCAR content out there. I feel like I do a pretty good job of teaching it. And again, I don't give out lineups or anything, but I know a lot of people have no idea about anything about NASCAR on my Discord chat, and they seem to be doing pretty well. I know I had a guy get first place using my projections and stuff. So yeah, I really do enjoy it. So if you want to check out the NASCAR content, feel free to do so. And it's still pretty early in the month, so it's still the best time to sign up on Patreon. And yeah, I think that's enough plugging, except the MLB's coming up in 20 days. MLB, got a huge data sheet for that. I'll be previewing that, not in NBA videos, but in MLB's coming up pretty shortly. So very excited for that. And I think that's enough plugging. So let's get into today's video. Alright, so up top, we got Luka Doncic. He comes in at 11,300. So as I stated earlier, he is questionable with an illness. I'm hoping he plays. He balled out in the last game versus New Orleans. The game ended up going to overtime, got that triple-double, and balled out, closed the game, got the win. And I'm a huge Luka fan. I know you guys probably know that, because I feel like every time he's on the slate, I recommend him. But the guy's awesome, and he's got triple-double upside every single time he's on the court. I believe I saw a statistic on Twitter that he's averaging a triple-double every 5 games that he plays, which is pretty insane. I believe it's the best rate ever. I know Russell Westbrook's up there, and I can't remember who was second, but yeah, I mean, the guy's triple-double machine, and we know his upside's insane every single night, does everything. He scores a lot of points, he gets a lot of rebounds, he gets a lot of assists. It's fun rostering Luka because the guy's awesome to watch. And going up against Memphis, this is a pretty good matchup. Now, like I said, he was questionable. I didn't really go too in-depth on that, but so it's with an illness. I'm assuming he's going to play. If I had to bet if he was going to play or not, I would say he plays, but these NBA players, man, they'll miss a game for just about anything, so I wouldn't be too confident about him playing. But certainly like the matchup here versus Memphis. Dallas plays slow, but they're going up against Memphis, who is top 10 in pace of play. They're 7th in pace. And Luka's numbers on the season, of course, they're going to be insane. He's at 1.67 points per minute with a 37% usage rate. Nothing bad I can say about Luka. Sorry, my nose is itching. But if you look at his stats on the season, 28.5 points per game, 8.8 assists, 9.5 rebounds. He's almost averaging a triple-double. So Luka Doncic, I think he's a fantastic play as long as he's good to go. But again, we have no idea. And if he's out, we'll have a different story to talk about. You could up guys like Kristaps Porzingis, JJ Barea, and some other guys like that. And right below him, we have Giannis, who is the best point per minute player in the NBA for fantasy purposes. The guy is just absolutely insane. Now, this matchup versus the Lakers is pretty concerning, considering it's, they're really tough defensively. If you look at the DVP chart, they rank second best overall, and they rank second versus power forward. So this matchup is not good for Giannis. But the thing about Giannis is I don't care about matchups. The guy's matchup proof, and he's on his way to winning an MVP this season. So and he played the Lakers earlier in the year. I believe he had around 60 fantasy points, which is probably what we can expect here, and with the upside of more, because as long as the game stays close, Giannis usually balls out. That's really the only thing I care about with Giannis, is if the game's going to be close. And I think from one site I looked at, there's only a 1-point spread. I can see if the site I pulled data from is actually updated yet. Okay, I just checked and it's not, but I think one site said it was at a 1-point spread. So if that's the case, Giannis should have a pretty good game here, and as long as the game stays close, and this is going to be a huge game, two of the best teams in the NBA, Milwaukee versus the Lakers at LA. So Giannis is going to be up for this game, and not like he's never not up for a game, but extra motivation to play really hard here. And he's at 1.9 points per minute, which is insane. Now the thing is, he only averages 30 minutes per game compared to the other studs, so kind of evens out a little bit. But if he's going to play, Like if he gets like 35 minutes tonight, I mean, the guy's got 80-point upside, and he's got a 37.5% usage rate. I mean, there's nothing bad I can say about Giannis. He's a fantastic play as long as the game stays close. And game versus the Lakers, I would assume it would be. So Giannis should certainly be on your radar. It's also the late game at 10:30, so I always like getting late game exposure to studs because I always like having those big late game hammers. Just makes me feel better about my lineups. Because when you don't have them, you always just feel like someone's going to come up from behind you and take your spot, especially if you're in cash. All right, now Bradley Beal, 10,400. He's more of a GPP option because Luka and Giannis, they do everything in the stat sheet. They got triple-double upside. Bradley Beal doesn't really have that triple-double upside. He's not going to just rack up the assists and rebounds. He's going to score a lot of points. There's some games he'll score 50 real-life points, but he doesn't do too much else in the stat sheet. But he still has 60, 70 fantasy point upside. We've seen it recently as well, and what a better matchup to ask for than versus Atlanta, the worst defensive team in the league, and both teams are top 6 in pace of play, so I expect this game to be a track meet. And there's no totals out yet, but if I had to guess, this should have the highest total. Wouldn't surprise me if it's over 240, maybe 242 if I had to guess. I feel like I usually get these pretty close when I'm guessing. If I had to, maybe 242, 240, 242. Maybe they put it in the 230s. I don't know, but I feel like this game could be a 240 over-under, so you're definitely going to want exposure to it. We know Bradley Beal's upside's insane, and on the year he's at 1.33 points per minute, the 34.4% usage rate. So I think he's this pretty solid play. Matchup versus Atlanta's elite, 29th versus shooting guards, 30th versus small forwards. So Bradley Beal, I think he's excellent tournament option. I feel like there's better cash game plays. Like just giving Giannis for 800 more. I know the game environment's not going to be as great. The matchup's not as great either, but he's so much better point per minute wise, and only a 1 point spread for Giannis just screams upside. So Bradley Beal is fine for tournaments, but just know he's a little bit more risky than Giannis or Luka. But I know the price tag is different, but I just feel more comfortable with the cash games. Trae Young, I would rather play Trae Young over Bradley Beal as well because he's below 10K, and he hasn't been below 10K in at least the last 10 games according to DraftKings. So I like the price we're getting for Trae Young here, and I love the matchup versus Washington, and this is the same game as Bradley Beal. So I already talked about the game environment. You gotta love the game environment here. Should be a track meet. That's the kind of games I like to target Trae Young in and Bradley Beal. But Trae Young's numbers on the season, they're very, very good. 1.43 points per minute, 34.8% usage rate. And that's why I'd much rather play Trae Young because, again, he's 500 cheaper than Bradley Beal. And if you just look at his numbers on the season, they're all better than Bradley Beal. So it just doesn't really make sense to play Bradley Beal over Trae Young. If you want to play both in the tournament in a single entry GBP or something, yeah, I totally get that. If they go back and forth all game and they both score like 50 real life points, yeah, they'll ball out and crush their price tags. So I think they're both awesome tournament options, but I think Trae Young's the better cash game play over Bradley Beal. Kristaps Porzingis, he comes in at 9,300. So if Luka plays, no thank you. But if Luka does not play, we can certainly look Kristaps Porzingis' way because he turns into an absolute monster when Luka misses. I know the price tag is way up there, but I'm still willing to play him. It's a good matchup versus Memphis, and I believe one of the games that Luka missed was versus Memphis, and Porzingis just went off. I want to say I could probably look it up really quick, get an exact number. Yeah, so actually last game that Luka missed, that versus Memphis, Porzingis had like 60.8 fantasy points. In the past 2 games, even when Luka's been playing, the last 2 games, Luka played in the last game versus New Orleans, he had 65, 66 fantasy points. In the game before that, Porzingis ended up having like 75 fantasy points. So even when Luka plays, he balls out, but when Luka's out, he's pretty much a lock to crush. So I think Porzingis is awesome in tournaments if Luka plays. If Luka doesn't play, he's awesome in cash games. You could make a case for him to being the top spend up given the price. Obviously, I don't think he's going to, on average, score more points than Giannis, but he's also much cheaper. So say Giannis gets 64, but Porzingis gets like mid-50s, you'll still feel pretty good about it, which I think he's got upside for 80. He had 75 the one game, so yeah, Porzingis, excellent option in tournaments as of right now, and you got to like the spot versus Memphis. Much a big pace-up environment for the Mavericks. They're 24th compared to 7th. And on the season, 1.27 points per minute, 26.7% usage rate. If you take Luka off the court, that number gets pretty high, around 1.4 points per minute with over a 30% usage rate. So you certainly have to have interest in Porzingis. And if you look at the DVP chart, Memphis ranked 16th versus power forwards, 16th versus centers, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. So Porzingis would certainly be in my radar. Hassan Whiteside, 9,100. Whenever Whiteside's on the slate, he's usually on this player pool because I just love playing Hassan Whiteside. Now, he's priced in a tough situation. Like, I'd rather play Nikola Vucevic or Kristaps Porzingis over the guy, but especially if Luka's out, I'd much rather play Porzingis. But I think he's still a fine tournament option. I can't imagine a lot of people are going to play him. But going up against Phoenix, you want to target Phoenix with big men. They've struggled versus big men all season. Now, I know DeAndre Ayton's out, which he's one of the worst defenders, but I still think he can eat up this team down low, and I'm certainly going to be a good game environment. I think this has potential for being possibly the second highest over-under on the slate. I mean, just looking at all the other games, I know Washington, Atlanta, I would assume it's going to be the highest, but Portland, Phoenix, that should be at a really high total. Both teams kind of suck defensively. Both teams play pretty fast, so I imagine this is probably going to be mid-230s, maybe 235, 236 if I had to guess. But yeah, both teams, they're top 11 in pace of play, and his numbers on the season are great. 1.34 points per minute, lower usage rate, but it doesn't really matter for Whiteside. Guy can rack up the blocks, and he's got 20-20 potential. We know that. And if you look at the DVP chart, Phoenix, they rank 19th versus center, so like the spot for Son Whiteside. I think he's a really good tournament option. Probably not going to get there in cash games because I think Nikola Vucevic's the better cash game option, and I expect him to be pretty popular tomorrow. He comes in at 8,900. And another thing is that the Magic are dealing with some injuries here. So we have Evan Fournier going to miss this game. Aaron Gordon's back, but we also have obviously Jonathan Isaac's out. So yeah, Evan Fournier being off the court is going to open up just some overall usage rate bumps and points per minute bumps to everyone on the starting five for the Magic, and also some bench pieces, which we'll talk about for value options. But yeah, I really like Nikola Vucevic here, 8,900. Love the spot versus Minnesota. And if I had to guess, the Magic are probably going to have one of the higher implied team totals on the slate because we know how bad Minnesota is defensively. And the Magic, they get a big pace-up spot here. So they're second to last in pace this season. They're 29th. Minnesota's ranked third, so it's a 26-spot difference. That's probably going to be one of the biggest we see on the entire slate. And on the season, numbers are great. 1.3 points per minute, 26% usage rate. And with Evan Fournier being off the court, it just opens up a little bit more usage. And I know they don't play the same position at all, but still, just helps another guy from the starting five is off the court. So Nikola Vucevic, I think he's an excellent option in cash games and tournaments. So definitely like Nikola Vucevic. Very, very strong. Not complete spend up because he's not 9K, but very good upper mid-range kind of guy. And some good news is I paused the video and I went to check if I could upload some totals, and I could. So, just looking at some of the totals for the Milwaukee and LA game, we're at 227 with a 1-point spread. The Washington-Atlanta game's at 245.5. That's higher than I thought it was going to be. I think I said, 242? So, yeah, 245.5. Definitely want to get exposure to that game. There's going to be a lot of points being scored there. No defense at all. 124.25 implied team total for the Wizards. So, yeah, definitely want some exposure there. Dallas does not have a total yet, assuming because Luka's questionable. Portland doesn't have a total either. Vucevic, see the Magic got a 118.25 implied team total, 234 total there. Yeah, definitely want exposure to that. And just some 235s. New Orleans, Miami. Yeah, it's pretty much it that's out. So yeah, 245.5. That's more than I thought it was going to be. That's one of the highest of the season. So yeah, definitely want exposure there. But just moving on down, we just talked about Vucevic. Sabonis, he comes in at 8,700. So basically the rule is if you're a power forward / center facing Chicago, you make the sheet by default because they suck so bad down low. I mean, if you just look at the DVP chart, they rank 30th versus power forwards, 30th versus centers. Now, Atlanta's coming for that 30th spot from the centers, but they still haven't overtaken it yet. And I mean, Chicago is just so bad defensively down low, one of the worst defensive teams in the entire league. Versus big men, actually not one of the absolute worst. And Sabonis, he's been rock solid all season. I always feel like he's safe for cash games because you pretty much know what you're going to get. You're going to get around 40 fantasy points with upside of more. Now, the game environment here is kind of sucky, but I mean, his numbers are strong on the season. 1.23 points per minute with a 23.3% usage rate, so you really can't complain about that. And also, I didn't even mention that there is just so many injuries on the Pacers right now. We got Oladipo, he's listed as questionable on DraftKings. Brogdon's listed as questionable, but I believe he's not expected to play. We have TJ Warren questionable. I believe there's one more guy. Well, obviously Jeremy Lamb's out, but Doug McDermott, yeah, he's also questionable. So that's pretty much the whole team. So just if you imagine all those guys are out, it's going to be Sabonis. So definitely got to have some interest in him. If all those guys are out, I mean, you can make a case for Sabonis being one of the top plays because he's going to be pretty much the entire team. TJ McConnell will be a good play, which we'll talk about him in a little bit. But Sabonis, Miles Turner even. So, but definitely like Sabonis, he should anchor the load offensively, and he's got his upside's there. He's got near 60-point upside, especially versus Chicago. So like him quite a bit. John Collins, 8,500. This is just getting exposure to this game. Now that I know it's a 245.5 total, I feel pretty good about at least trying to stack that up in tournaments. I know some of these guys are a little bit expensive, so it might not be the easiest game to stack in the world, but certainly want exposure here. He's 8,500, and he's been playing pretty well. A couple games ago, he didn't have the best game in the world, but he's had a couple of 60-point games mixed in there. So, like John Collins, his upside's it's obviously well up there, and he's at 1.24 points per minute, 22.8% usage rate. Nothing really bad I can say about John Collins. The matchup is good versus Washington. They rank 17th versus power forwards, 24th versus centers. So, John Collins certainly on my radar for tournaments. Probably won't get there in cash games. Devin Booker, another guy that's I'm not sure if I'm going to get there in cash games, but definitely like him in tournaments. Now, again, I expect this game to have a pretty high total in the mid-230s if I had to guess, and it's only a 1-point spread, so do like that for Devin Booker. It's a really good matchup versus Portland, and we know the guy's going to play all the minutes he can handle. He pretty much does everything on that team. I shouldn't say he does everything on this team. I kind of meant that he's going to have to do everything for this team tonight because DeAndre Ayton's going to be out, and obviously Kelly Oubre's out. So pretty much going to be the Devin Booker show with some mixed in Ricky Rubio and some other guys like that. But Devin Booker's definitely going to have to shoulder the load here. His numbers are good in the season, 1.15 points per minute, the 29.4% usage rate. If you take both those guys off the court, he goes all the way up to 1.23 points per minute and a 32% usage rate. So I think Devin Booker is a very strong play. You could get away with him in cash games, but as always, he's suited better for tournaments. But you could play him in cash games. I don't have a problem with that. Scrolling down a little bit to Bam Adebayo, he comes in at 8,200. And this is mainly just wanting to get exposure to Miami versus New Orleans, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. And these games always end up high scoring because New Orleans has a good offense, don't have a great defense. Now Miami's a pretty solid defensive squad, and we only have a 2-point spread. So I like this game for DFS purposes. I think there's a couple of guys, on Miami that I want. Yeah, I like Bam. I like Jimmy Butler. Goran Dragic's like a solid option as well. But let's just talk about Bam. So obviously, he's been having a great season. He's at 1.17 points per minute, 20.6% usage rate. Guy also does a little bit of everything in the stat sheet, which I do like. He's not totally scoring dependent at all. He's only averaging 16.1 points per game, but averaging 5 assists, 10.5 boards, getting the steals and blocks as well. He does a little bit of everything in the stat sheet. He's got triple-double upside. So Bam Adebayo, I think he's fine. It's a good matchup versus New Orleans. Obviously, it's a pace-up spot for Miami. If you look at the pace column, they're 18th in pace of play, while New Orleans is 2nd. So obviously we all know that New Orleans plays extremely fast. And if you look at the DVP chart, New Orleans does rank 19th versus center. So Bam Adebayo, I think he's a pretty solid option. Brandon Ingram, 8K. I just love playing Brandon Ingram. The guy's obviously made huge improvements this season, just continues to play extremely well. He can play all the minutes he can handle. And, when he's been in that 7K tier, he just kind of feels like a layup. Now that he's 8,000, just not as easy on the eyes, but he's still just 8,000. It's only 100 more than he was last game. And I'm willing to take another shot at Brandon Ingram. He just continues to play pretty well. Now the matchup versus Miami is not the strongest. If you look at the DVP chart, Miami's one of the better defensive teams in the league. They rank 10th versus small forwards and 9th versus power forwards. But Brandon Ingram's just been so good this season. We've seen him do well in bad matchups before, and they play fast. And we know the Pelicans are going to score a bunch of points on the season. 1.23 points per minute with a 28.4% usage rate. Brandon Ingram, I think he's still a fine play at 8K. I think he's solid for cash games and also solid for tournaments. Jimmy Butler, I feel like he's going to be somewhat popular tomorrow going up against New Orleans. He's below 8K. I know he doesn't it's not like he's just an absolute lock for 45 plus points every single night, but I feel like he's going to get us around 40 fantasy points with the upside of more. But you got to like the matchup versus New Orleans. Like I already said, they're pretty bad defensively. If you look at the DVP chart, 21st versus shooting guards, 22nd versus small forwards. So you like the spot for Jimmy Butler here. And on the season, numbers are pretty solid. 1.22 points per minute, 25% usage rate. Pretty much on par numbers with Brandon Ingram. They're pretty much the same prices, and Butler's got the better matchup. Now, who do I trust more? For DFS purposes, I trust Brandon Ingram, but I still think they're both pretty solid plays. So like I said, there's a lot of good spend-up options, and there's a lot of good mid-range options here. So it could be interesting. You could go with a more balanced build approach tomorrow, or if you want to go stars and scrubs, you certainly can, because as you're going to see, we have a lot of 3K options. So like I said, this is going to be a really fun slate. I'm hoping it's not as chalky as it has the potential to, because obviously when there's a lot of value options, it tends to be chalky because everyone just plugs in the studs, and then there's always the obvious value plays, and you just throw in a couple of mid-range plays, and it ends up being a really chalky night. And I just hate those kind of nights because it's a 10 gamer. It would just be nice to be on your own island with some of these spend-up options and mid-range options, but I know that's probably not going to happen. That's just more wishful thinking. But I am really going to. I really think this is going to be a fun slate. I'm enjoying breaking this down. But right below Jimmy Butler, we got Zion Williamson, 7,600. Just seems a bit too cheap. I know he didn't have the greatest game the last time out versus Dallas, but that was also his first back-to-back of the season, so I'm willing to cut him some slack there. And still had like 32 fantasy points, so it's not like he went out there and scored like 14 or anything. He's still fine. And they lowered his price, 7,600, so I certainly think Zion's fine. He's probably going to play not mid-30s, but lower 30s minutes, which is fine. Because he's been fine point per minute wise this season, 1.26 points per minute, over 30% usage rate. So, yeah, you got to have some interest in Zion, and smaller sample size, but he's averaging 24 points per game, 6.8 boards, 2.2 assists. Yeah, I think he's a pretty solid mid-range option. Like I said, there's a lot of good mid-range options. You got Booker, Adebayo, Ingram, Butler, Zion. I mean, you have DeRozan, who I think is probably the best of all these guys I just talked about, considering his price tag. No, he didn't have the greatest game last time out versus Charlotte, but I just don't see how we don't lock him in at 7,200 without LaMarcus Aldridge versus Brooklyn. It's going to be a decently fast-paced game. They're 15th in pace of play, while Brooklyn is 9th, so it's going to be above average here. And on the season, he's at 1.13 points per minute, 26.7% usage rate. But if you take LaMarcus Aldridge off the court, his numbers would say that he has a 31% usage rate, and he's at 1.21 points per minute. So at 7,200, I mean, I think it's a pretty easy play tomorrow. I expect him to be pretty high owned. Now, if you look at the DVP chart for Brooklyn, they're actually not that bad at all versus forwards/shooting guards. Let's see, they rank, if I can find them. Yeah, 8th versus shooting guards and 7th versus small forwards. But, I'm willing to look past that and just look at the numbers. So, DeMar DeRozan certainly on my radar. I think he's a very, very good play. And like I said, this mid-range is very, very strong tomorrow. So, I mean, you can make the case to make a more balanced build, but with all the value plays we have, I mean, you're going to end up paying for a stud. So, but you're going to have room to fit in a lot of these mid-range guys as well. Right below DeRozan, though, we got Ricky Rubio, 7,100. Again, there's just a lot of missing bodies on Phoenix right now. Two of the most, not the most important, but two, besides Booker. I mean, Oubre and DeAndre Ayton. I mean, they're kind of like the guys there besides Booker. But, yeah, 7,100. Good matchup versus Portland. And, he's over a point per minute guy in the year, 1.09 points per minute, 20.2% usage rate. Obviously, those numbers are going to go up a little bit when you take Oubre and Ayton off the court, closer to 1.2 points per minute. And he's going to play around 30, 33 minutes, and I think he's probably going to get you around 35-ish fantasy points, if not more. The guy's got some upside. He's got a little bit of a triple-double upside. Nothing too exciting from a triple-double for him, but he's only averaging 12.7 points per game, but also averaging nearly 9 assists per game, 4.5 rebounds, but you never know. He could surprise you. And again, Uber's off the court, Ayton's off the court, so going to get a bump for sure. You like the matchup versus Portland as well. If you look at the DVP chart, Portland, they do rank 26th versus point guard, so pretty good match for Ricky Rubio, and there's some guys missing on the court for the Suns, some important guys, so I think Ricky Rubio is fine in cash and tournaments. Karis LeVert, he comes in at 7K, good matchup versus San Antonio. They struggle versus guards all season. They're ranked 21st versus shooting guards, 21st versus small forwards. So yeah, Karis LeVert, he's on my radar. You can play him in cash games. I feel like he's a better tournament play because he can be a little bit hit or miss, especially at this price of 7K, but I know he just recently dropped a 66-point fantasy outing recently, which was amazing. But, yeah, his numbers on the season, they're strong, 1.05 points per minute, 29% usage rate. The guy's got upside, like the matchup versus San Antonio. He's on my radar. Kobe White, 6,300. Again, Zach LaVine's going to miss this game, and Kobe White just does not know how to have a bad game. He just continues to put up 30-plus fantasy points every single night, and I still think he's fairly priced. I know that 6,300 for Kobe White seems a bit much, but the guy's just been playing pretty well. Now, the matchup versus Indy, that sucks, but they're going to be out. They're going to be out without Malcolm Brogdon, who's one of the better defenders on the team, and then you're going to Victor Oladipo's also questionable. TJ Warren's questionable. So there's going to be a lot of starting guys missing. I'm not saying the bench players are complete trash defensively, but if you take Malcolm Brogdon off, obviously it's going to soften up their defense a bit. So I still think he's a pretty fine play here. And if you look at the DVP chart, like I said, they're ranked 9th versus point guard, 7th versus shooting guard. So kind of scary on the surface if you're just looking at the matchup. But I mean, if Brogdon's out, which I believe he is listed as doubtful, I should probably double check that. yeah, he's doubtful, so I expect him to be out. So, yeah, Kobe White, I expect him to come off the bench and do what he's been doing. Probably get around 40 fantasy points, with upside of more. If he's like absolutely on fire, we know what Kobe White can do. So, certainly like him. And if you look at his numbers on the season, he's at 0.91 points per minute, 24% usage rate. But if you take Levine off the court, he's around 1.04 points per minute with about a 30% usage rate. So, certainly like Kobe White. Don't let him coming off the bench scare you. Goran Dragic, 5,900. He's been playing pretty well recently, and I love the matchup versus New Orleans. Only a 2-point spread, 235 total. Definitely want exposure to Miami here. Pace up spot, like I've been saying like 40 times already. And his numbers on the season, they're pretty strong. 25% usage rate, 1.04 points per minute. If you look at the DVP chart, New Orleans, they rank 30th versus point guards. Cleveland was 30th, but I see that New Orleans finally claimed their throne at 30th. That must have just been from Luka the last game, scoring 73 points. So, I don't know, maybe that goes back to Cleveland. But, yeah, New Orleans, if you're a point guard versus New Orleans, I mean, you're in definitely a good spot. So, yeah, don't mind Goran Dragic. Terrence Ross, he had a pretty funny box score. If you looked at the last game, he scored 35 points, and that was it. That's all he did. I think he only scored 38 fantasy points, which you'll take it as price tag, but he did absolutely nothing. He's very, very scoring dependent, but I think you got to have interest, especially with Evan Fournier off. That's obviously going to be a boost to Terrence Ross. Got him for over 30 minutes here. If you look at his numbers on the season, he's at 0.88 points per minute with a 23% usage rate. But if you take Fournier off the court, he's over a point per minute with a close to a 30% usage rate. So you certainly got some interest in Terrence Ross, and I certainly like the matchup here for the Magic. Definitely a boost here as they're 29th in pace of play, going up against the third-ranked pace of play Minnesota Timberwolves. So certainly has some interest in Terrence Ross. Now his price is up there a little bit, so I think he's a better tournament play, especially because he's scoring dependent, but I still think he's fine. Davis Bertans, 5,600. He's been shooting the ball well recently, and like I said, guys, I want exposure to this game. It's a 245.5 point over-under, only a 3-point spread, and these kind of games just... It's got Davis Bertans' name written all over it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of threes chucked from Davis Bertans, and they tend to go in. I know the one game recently he went 8 for 10 from deep. Is that sustainable, shooting 80% from 3? Not at all, but, I mean, I don't see why you can't do it again versus Atlanta here. And, again, game's going to be a track meet. He's about a point per minute guy. 18% usage rate's not amazing, but it's because he catches the ball and shoots from the logo if he wants to. But DVP chart, they rank 30th versus small forwards, 29th versus power forwards. So, obviously, an elite matchup here for Davis Bertans. Trey Lyles, 5,100. So, he sucked as chalk. I mean, he absolutely sucked. He was 5,200 last game. I think it was versus Charlotte. Yeah, it was a great matchup down low. He did nothing. But I feel like this is just going to lower his ownership. So, I feel like we can go back to the Trey Lyles well. Not probably in cash games, but I think he's fine in tournaments because the games before that, he was playing very, very well. I know he had a 44-point game mixed in. Then he had a 30-point game mixed in, but he's been playing well. And this is a good matchup as a big guy versus the Brooklyn Nets. If you look at the DVP chart, they're ranked 27 versus center. So I do like the spot for Trey Lyles, and obviously LaMarcus Aldridge being off the court is going to be a boost for him. If you look at his numbers on the season, 0.84 points per minute, 13.5% usage rate. But if you take Aldridge off the court, that number gets closer to a point per minute. So, and obviously he gets a huge minutes boost. He's only averaging 20 minutes per game, but got him for over 30 here. So Trey Lyles, I think he's fine. I don't think I'd probably get there in cash games, but tournaments, I feel like people aren't going to play him because of what he did last game, and everyone played him, so they got a sour taste in their mouth. So I think that makes him a better GPP play. Dario Saric, so DeAndre Ayton's going to be out, Oubre's going to be out, obviously, so Saric is in line for over 30 minutes here, and if he gets over 30 minutes at this price tag versus Portland, should be able to pay it off. We only have a 1-point spread here. Definitely want exposure to this game. Now, his numbers aren't great on the year, only 0.87 points per minute with a 17% usage rate, but if you take those guys off the court, Saric is sitting at 0.98 points per minute. That's pretty darn good given his price tag, and the matchup versus Portland's amazing. If you look at the DVP chart, they rank 27 versus power forwards and 26 versus centers. So Darius Saric, I think he's a very, very good play. TJ McConnell, like I said, there's like a million guys for the Pacers, questionable or doubtful. Warren's questionable. Oladipo's questionable. Malcolm Brogdon's doubtful. Doug McDermott's questionable. So McConnell's probably going to get around 30 minutes here. And I know last game he got 30 minutes. Ended up playing pretty well. Now, this matchup versus Chicago, it sucks big time. They rank, first versus point guards. But, again, I don't care about the matchup sometimes when there's just so many more minutes available. And Like matchups, like third thing for me. Like the first thing we want is minutes, and then the second thing we want is point per minute rates, and then if the matchup's good, that's obviously it's gonna be a good thing. Like for Trae Young, everything checks the box here. You're gonna play huge minutes. He's good point per minute wise, 1.44 points per minute, high usage rate, and then you throw in this game environment, 245.5 point total, fast-paced game. Yeah, I mean that just checks all the boxes. Now TJ McConnell, the matchup sucks, but I'm willing to look past that because he's 4K. He's gonna have around 30 minutes. I mean, obviously he's not going to get exactly 31 minutes. Maybe he does, but I mean, yeah, there's just a big bump for him because there's going to be so much guys off the court as well. And if you look at his numbers on the season, 0.98 points per minute. But if you take all those guys off the court, that's going to be over a point per minute. Usage rate gets around 20%, if not a little bit more. So McConnell, one of the more popular value plays tonight, I'd have to imagine, and I think he's one of the better value plays on tonight's slate. Dwayne Dedmon, he's expected to be back for this game, and he's only 3,400. He should play around 20 minutes, and he's good point per minute wise. If we want exposure to this game, I just spit on my laptop again. But yeah, we want exposure to this game, and he's just so cheap, and he's been good point per minute wise this season. I mean, not amazing, but for his price tag, it's pretty good. 0.91 points per minute, 17% usage rate, and he's got double upside here. And I like the matchup versus Washington. They suck down low versus centers. They're ranked 24th versus the position. So Dwayne Dedmon, he's going to be one of the better value plays on tonight's slate. Michael Carter-Williams, I expect him to have some ownership as well. No, Evan Fournier is going to open up some minutes for DJ Augustine and Michael Carter-Williams off the bench. He's only 3,300. And let's see. Lost my train of thought for a second. But yeah, going up against Minnesota, definitely like the game environment here. And if you look at his numbers on the season, he's at 0.96 points per minute with an 18% usage rate. But if you take Evan Fournier off the court, his numbers really don't change at all, but he's just going to get extra minutes. He's only averaging, 17 minutes per game. We should see a little bit over 20. So Michael Carter-Williams certainly on my radar, and I like the matchup quite a bit versus Minnesota. They rank, at 24th versus point guards, 27 versus shooting guards. So Michael Carter-Williams, I think he's fine. Aaron Baines, I expect him to be extremely popular. I think he's rating out as my best point per dollar option as of right now. But he's the min price, and there's no under Ayton, so he's going to play around 25-ish minutes here, maybe a little bit more. Maybe he creeps up to 30. I mean, he's probably going to be one of the most popular plays on the slate. He's the kind of guy that's going to allow you to fit in guys like Giannis, Luka, if he plays Bradley Beal, Trae Young pretty easily. So, the Aaron Baines, we got to have interest. It's a great matchup down low versus Portland. I already talked about it earlier, but they rank 26 versus centers. So, yeah, you got to like the SPY here, and it's going to be a fast-paced game, only 1 point spread. He's a point per minute kind of guy. Again, if you take Ayton off the court, the number goes up. 20% usage rate. It's a pretty easy play in my opinion. I mean, really don't want to go too in-depth. He's the min price. He's going to play around 30 minutes. Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? All right, so DJ Augustine. I got him for 3. Kind of said that weird. DJ Augustine. He comes in at the min price, 3K. No Evan Fournier, so obviously he's going to get a bump. And he should play around 25 minutes. And if that's the case, I don't see how he doesn't hit value. I mean, if you play Aaron Baines and DJ Augustine in your lineup, you can afford pretty much the entire slate. So you can do whatever you want. So that's, I mean, like I said, this is a fun slate. A lot of good mid-range options, a lot of good value options, and a lot of good spend-up options. So it's going to be interesting to see where people go with their lineups. But yeah, I want exposure to the Magic. I mean, they got 119 implied team total. There's some missing bodies for them. Pace up matchup for them for sure. On the season, he's at 0.83 points per minute with an 18% usage rate. If you take Fournier off the court, he goes up to 0.91 points per minute. So DJ Augustine, I think he's an excellent value option. And that's pretty much going to be it for this marathon of a player pool breakdown for me. But before we get out of here, I do want to talk about the sponsor, OverlayDFS.com. Alright, so if you've been watching my videos already, you already know what this is. But if you're new to the channel, this is OverlayDFS.com. Absolutely love playing over here. It's a nice fresh air compared to DraftKings. You know, DraftKings is a real grind. I love DraftKings. Absolutely love it. No slight to DraftKings in the slightest. I think they're an awesome website. But I gotta say, it's a grind. You gotta build lineups. You gotta, build projections. You gotta, just try to build the optimal lineup. And you gotta, salary cap restrictions, all that stuff. But over at Overlay, it's much more simple. It's just a pick 'em based website. So they have a matchup column around 20 players, and you pick your 12 favorite matchups. So this is from a couple nights ago, but if you thought Fred VanVleet was going to outscore Eric Bledsoe, you picked FVV. If you thought Hayward was going to outscore SGA, you picked Hayward. And if you thought Fox was going to outscore Wiggins, you picked De'Aaron Fox. Guys, it's as simple as that. And if you finish in the top 10% of the contest, you win 9 extra money. And I think that's the best thing about Overlay, to be honest. Their payout structure is amazing. If you finish in the top 10%, you win 9 extra money. The 9 extra money over on DraftKings, you got to win the whole thing sometimes. And even sometimes if you win the whole tournament or contest that you're in, you're not even going to earn extra money. So I love the payout structure there over there on Overlay. And they pay you out quick. They'll pay you out within hours and into your bank account. They got good people over there. You can trust them. It's a legit website. They will pay you out. Nothing to worry about that. And the big thing is the jackpot. It's getting close to $16,000. We're talking almost a 100-day carryover that it hasn't been hit. It's due to hit. So if someone's gonna hit it, why not you? I'm hoping it's me, but if it's not me, I hope it's one of you guys watching this video. $16,000 to go 12-0 on your picks. Someone's gonna hit it eventually. Guys have been close. Someone went 11-1. Someone went 10-2 the other night. I mean, there's a lot of guys that go 10-2, but very, very close every single night. Someone's bound to hit it, so do not miss out on the chance to win $16,000 on a $22 investment. Pretty darn good odds. So check it out, guys. Also have some challenges they're running. So they have a Slump Buster challenge where if you lose 20 days in a row, not consecutive days, but say you play once a week for 20 weeks in a row, twice a week for 10 weeks in a row, and you lose every single time, they'll refund every single dollar you deposited. And if you go 0-12 one night, they'll give you $500 for having the worst night of your life. So check it out, guys. OverlayDFS.com. Love that website. You got some good people over there. And that's going to be it for this video. I hope it was helpful. If it was, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Follow me over on Twitter at Pennell16. Just heard a noise. I don't know what it was. I'll check it out. But we're going to get off the video. Enjoy your weekend. It's Friday. NASCAR is coming up tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. MLB's coming soon. Spring training's going on right now. Love it. So, yeah, it's going to be it. See you guys in the next video, and enjoy your Friday.